Welcome, it's Scarlet Peate's Self-Sufficiency Machine Knitting Series. Tonight we're going to knit a snowman. This snowman I've knitted with a green bottom, but Lily argues with me that he doesn't need to be on grass in the snow, he needs to be on ice. So we're going to put a blue base to him. We're going to cast on using weaving levers and making a weaving cast on, which will leave us a nice long end of yarn to thread up and stitch up with later. 40 stitches in total. Weaving cast on with every second needle out into holding position, and we use the tool for that. Weaving levers up and thread up the machine. I've got a video on this if you need to know more. Row counter back to 0, and we're going to knit 10 rows. There's the end that we're going to stitch up with in the future. After we've knitted our 10 rows, we're going to do a bit of hand selection fair isle, which should be quite good fun. That's using this tool. We're going to push forward every second stitch, set our carriage for fair isle, put in a second colour, into the second feeder, and knit that hand selected row. I'm going to do the same row again, using those same stitches I selected, pulled out every second stitch, and knit again. This is just to give a bit of an icy bottom to him. And on the third hand selected row, we're going to do the ones we didn't pull out before. So these are going to be the blue stitches that we pull out, and we just knit one row. At this point, we break the blue yarn because we're finished with that, put it to one side, remove the second colour and the fair isle switch, put the carriage back to plain, swap the yarn. Otherwise, if we don't do this, we'll lose our yarn, our work, it'll all fall off. And we're going to knit 50 rows to knit the body of the snowman. Just checking there, it's all looking good, and you can see the hand selected fair isle, which is the bit that I just think it gives him a bit more detail, just a bit of interest. He's sitting on ice. He must have defrosted a bit and froze over a bit, rather than grass. When we get to the 50 rows, we're going to shape the neck. I'm going to do this using every second needle transferred over, and that will be the neckline. It'll just create like a shoulder or a point to pull in. We're going to use tension dial 4 and knit a row. Put back those stitches that were out of work back into work. Put our tension dial back to 6, and we're going to knit his head. So that's 30 rows now with all the needles back in work. Just checking there the yarn, checking the shaping. You see there's the head. You see the shoulder point there that's going to gather in with those holes. And when we've got to row counter 80 on the white, that's all the white has been knitted with the row counter from 0 to 80. We've done the top. It's time to crown shape, which is where I'm going to take every second stitch over and put the ones empty out of work and knit one row. I'm going to do that on a tension dial 4 because that makes it a tighter, and we're going to knit 3 rows. That makes a much tighter crown on the top. That's the complete work, looking good. Now it's time to gather up the stitches. So we break the yarn quite long, thread it through the double eye transfer tool, and we use that to gather the stitches up. Pull together. As you can see, that does do quite a neat job on the top there, and that crown shaping makes such a difference. We put it right sides together, and then we're going to do a little stitching up. All the way down to the blue, matching up the holes each side and matching up the blue parts where they are, so it's all nice and neat. Stitch together, stitch in our ends, turn it out the right way. Time to stuff it. I'm going to use some toy stuffing, but this is not a toy, remember, it's a decoration. If it was a toy, we'd do things quite differently to make sure it's safe for children. We've got an end there that we're going to use to gather the neck once we stuffed it. At that end there is the weaving cast on end, so that's why we use the weaving cast on, because it's a good gathering end. Cast on for gathering. Time to do the neck shaping. We're just going to wrap around that 3 or 4 times and stitch the neck and the Head now show nicely, and time to do some eyes. I do a bit of hand embroidery here. I think this is called bugle stitching, where we wrap the thread around, the yarn around the needle. I'm going to do it 6 times. Not too tight. Keep it nice and relaxed. Use your fingernails to hold the work. Gently pull through. Secure it. Make sure it's nice and neat before you stitch the stitch. We'll do a second one by the side, so we've got a decent sized eye. Another 6 wrapped around. Now, if there's anything you don't understand, need a bit more information on, give me a shout in the comments, and then I can do some more videos for you. Down to the mouth. Mouth's just going to be one long stitch that's then shaped and held into place with some extra little stitches. As I say, this is not a toy, it is decoration only, so it's not child-proof. If you were making it for a child, I'm sure you would make it much safer. Stitches, much more care taken. This is just going to be hanging on a Christmas tree. Shaping his mouth nicely. Well, hopefully we won't do it nastily, we'll do it nicely. He's a happy snowman. And go down to where we're going to put his buttons on his front door, his lumps of coal. There we go. Looking good. Exactly the same again, bugle stitch. Wrapping the stitch around the needle. I think we've got it in the wrong place there, so I'm just going to move it over. You can't quite see. There we go. Invisible fix. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the needle. 6. 6 stitches again. Secure the stitch and do the second one just by the side. Just think it makes it a bit more defined and it looks more like a lump of coal. With all that extra stitching there, looks good. Well, I think it looks good. Do you think it looks good, Lil?
Yeah, very good.
Yep. She didn't like the green bottom to my snowman earlier because she said there wouldn't be snow on the snowy, there wouldn't be grass in the snow. So I've done it. I've done it blue, so it's icy. It's got an icy bottom. He must have defrosted a couple of times and there's been a pool of ice around the bottom. I just think it makes it a bit different. I don't want my snowmen the same as everybody else's on the internet. Got a bit of a different designer touch to them. There we go. If you have any problems pulling the thread through, just wriggle it a bit and don't pull the thread so tight around the needle. I'm putting 3 coals on him. You can put as many as you want. Maybe you don't want any coals on him. And Lily was telling me he really needs a waist. So she would like there to be a second wrapping of thread around his middle somewhere, like his neck and shoulders, just to give him a bit of a waist, but I don't think he needs it. I think he's perfect the way he is. Poor old Lily's got a nasty cough. She's been poorly lately, haven't you, Lil? I've been poorly all over Christmas and I've not been that great, so hence my snowman video is a bit late, but hopefully it's in time for the next Christmas and you can make a lot of them and put them up on the tree. And we didn't cover putting a little hanging point on him on this video. We should have done, really. There's going to be some more snowmen made, but those are going to be on my Patreon account because I've just made a new Patreon account for making patterns. It's going to be a lot more interactive with folk. But there's always going to be free videos, always on YouTube. Patreon's just an extra layer for extra value. I'm going to just finish off by hiding the threads down the bottom. Like I say, if that was a toy, you wouldn't just throw the stitching away like that. You'd be a bit more careful. Doesn't he look cute? It's a his and her. Time to do that scarf, I think, now. Just checking he looks nice and balanced. I think he looks good. Oh, you know what? It's nose time, isn't it? He needs a nose. And the nose is done with a very similar technique, using those bugle stitches. I really like the nose on him. Just get rid of that thread, hide it in the back seam, snip it off. There we go. Just like that. Nice orange carrot for his nose. Lily didn't like my nose I did on him. She thought it was a bit too wonky. I quite liked it though. I think he looks good. Tie a good secure knot on the back that we're going to hide in his head, which is going to be underneath the hat. Find the centre of his face, or maybe you don't want it on the centre, maybe you want it a bit wonky as well. Do a locking stitch. And then we'll do, I think we do 10 wraps of this. Let's have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Thought it was 10. Bit tighter on the needle, so there's a bit of a wriggle and a wiggle to get it through. Make sure it doesn't knot up behind. Pull it through nicely. Secure it at the base. There we go. She said I gave him a duck's nose instead of a carrot nose, but I think it looks good. And we're going to hide the thread in the top of his head because there's going to be a hat over the top. He needs a hat and a scarf now, doesn't he? We could even put a piece of cardboard in the base if you wanted him to stand up. Cut a round piece of cardboard and stitch him up with that in the base. Maybe even put a weight in the bottom to hold him so he doesn't fall over.
That's a good idea.
It is. I'm full of good ideas. Just wondering, maybe some rice, maybe. Right, to do the scarf, we're going to do a 4-stitch E-wrap, and we're using a cordage technique, which is where the carriage knits in one direction and not in the other. It slips in the other direction. We've used, I think it was tension dowel 3. Yes, tension dowel 3.
You even put lavender or something nice.
That would be good. Put in some nice roses or lavender petals in it. So we knit to one side. Pull the needles out again just to check it's working on the bottom. Then that first row's knitted nicely. Set the carriage to slip in one direction. So it knits in one direction and it pulls the yarn across in the other. So this has the effect of pulling together the edges, which makes a nice round cord. We pressed the right hand slip buttons, which meant it doesn't knit when it was coming back towards the right. And we're going to knit a length to make the scarf. And I did a hand span, a good old-fashioned schoolgirl measurement there. And to cast off this, I cast off by decreasing a stitch on each side first, because it's going to be a round end to it. So I take a stitch from each side and transfer into the side. Knit those by hand. Don't have to do this, just the way I like to do it. Take a stitch, transfer it over. Knit it by hand and pull straight through, and we've cast off. Now I'm going to take his neck and tie his little scarf tight around it, but not too tight. Don't want to strangle him. It's Christmas. I did a double knot so it wouldn't come undone, wouldn't get picked on by children and taken away from him. Don't want them stealing his little scarf, do we, Lil? No. Oh dear, excuse her coughing. I think we need to shoot her. Here I make some tassels by winding around my finger. I think it was 10 wraps around 3 fingers. And I'm going to use start again. I'm going to use a needle or latch tool to hook those loops all the way through the end of the scarf, like that. Pull it through. It's a bit of a wriggle and a trick, but it does look good when you do this. We're just creating one big tassel. We're also getting rid of the end to stitch in there by putting that in the middle of the tassel as well and pulling it through. Hook them on behind the latch, or in the latch, closed, pull it through. And there we have the makings of a tassel. Pull it nice and tight. And we get our sharp scissors. There we go. I had to edit that bit there because I actually cut my finger and I squawked. And then Lily was going on about my blood being everywhere, so I had to edit that bit out too because she's squeamish. Right, we're doing another 10 wraps again now on the other side to make another tassel. I'm sure you all know how to do this. Stab through the end of the cord, grab in the latch tool, all the ends, the wraps. Carefully make sure it's all closed with your thumb. Hold it down, pull it through, wriggle, 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 struggle through. And then make a tassel by pulling through the end that's around your finger still. It's going to look a bit messy, but we can sort that out with the scissors and a bit of a brush up later. Hope you're liking this snowman pattern. It was made specially for you guys. And I know it's a bit late for this year now because Christmas is over, but next Christmas is coming. If you check out...
Just one more year.
Yeah, just another year. If you check out my Patreon channel, there's also some designer Christmas wreaths and some designer Christmas snowmen on there. All the patterns and extra techniques for you to check out. I was asked to make a Patreon channel because people were wanting to give me some donations for my patterns, which was really nice of them. So there's always going to be these freebies for everybody, but I'm going to do some specialist Patreon content as well. There we go. What do you think? I think they look really good, but he needs a hat, obviously. I'm just going to do a weaving cast on. Maybe you would want to do a E-wrap cast on to make it a bit better. I've done tension dial 7, but as I say, no one's going to fiddle with him. He's just going to be hanging off a tree. So I don't think the bottom will come undone. 20 rows later, we transfer every second stitch over because we're doing that. Lily's trying to hide my cut there. She's upset by the blood. Look, good job, I've knitted in red, isn't it? What was I saying? We're transferring it over to make the crown there. Getting ready for gathering it up. She spotted I made a mistake, but who cares? It's just a hat for a snowman. He's not going to complain.
Might do.
No, I didn't make his mouth openable, so he can't say a thing. He can just mumble. Nobody will know what he's on about. Thread up your double eye latch tool here. There we go. And carefully take off all the stitches onto the latch tool. And when you've got a good 10 stitches on there, you just pull the thread through. Pull the latch tool through. Not the latch tool, double eye tool, sorry. She's showing the snowman what's going on there. Carry on all the way through again. And then we'll draw together the top to gather it. And then it'll just need a hand stitch down the side. And we'll whack it on his head. Pull it together, see, draw it together. Stitch the side seam even. Put it on his head, or her head. I think this is the lady snowman. Do you know what's missing? A bit of blusher on his cheeks.
Oh, yeah.
We need to put a little bit of pink pencil marks on the side. Poor Lily, you know, you could cough quietly. Get a bag and put over your head. Yes, we'll put blusher on them, I think, as well. And then they really will be good. I hope you've enjoyed making this along with us. Love to see your work. Please like, subscribe, share, and give me a comment so I know you're there. As once again, see you soon.